So on to today's session. Today we have Jason Lambert who will be presenting. Jason is Sherweb's advocate for Azure solutions. He is a cloud infrastructure veteran with over 10 years of experience assisting MSPs in enhancing their Azure skill sets and building IaaS solutions for their clients. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jason.
Thanks, Akila. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for investing time to come and listen to our webinar today. Our agenda is going to be standard versus Azure sales cycles and key differentiators between the two. Sherweb support across the sales lifecycle and where we can help, identifying Azure opportunities and spot the right clients in your book of business, objection handling and overcoming common challenges and best practices, and preview of upcoming sessions on the total cost of ownership and pricing and more. So with that said, I'm going to jump right in. If you again, as Akila said, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat, and I'm going to stop probably about 10 minutes or so early and just see if there's any questions out there. So why should I talk about Azure to my customer? Azure is a utility-based consumption model, meaning it's pay-as-you-go. The biggest reason why you should talk to your customers about Azure is so when the time comes and they're considering moving to Azure, you and your organization are the first people on their mind. Allowing Azure to scale according to their business needs is also very important. When we deal with infrastructure today, we're thinking about what the customer needs now and for the next 5 to 7 years. And so when that happens, you're making capital investments into that infrastructure and with the hopes that they will consume as much of the infrastructure as possible over time. In Azure, we're really concerned about what's happening today in the customer's environment and say the next 90 to 180 days. Within that time, you have the ability to scale. If you want to scale up because perhaps your customer is a seasonal operation, or if project work comes in or their business just gets busier, they can easily scale up. And then on the other side, if the economy does a downturn, if the seasons come to an end, they can go ahead and scale back down. If you have infrastructure on premises to support that need, there's a lot of time where the customer has more infrastructure or more server compute and storage than they really need most of the time. So that's a hefty investment for the customer to put out of pocket, where Azure, they can really truly pay for what they need when they need it. It reduces the burden on IT. So perhaps your customer has IT people on staff and they spend a lot of time working on that. Maybe moving into Azure will give them the opportunity to reduce their IT staff, taking care of infrastructure. And we're not suggesting that by doing that, we're letting those people go, but maybe they could be reallocated to other opportunities within the organization to help the business be more productive. So Azure also helps the customer innovate with the latest, greatest technology. If you want to get into Kubernetes or Docker or other virtual machines, or perhaps something like Azure File Server or Azure Files rather, maybe even perhaps I'm thinking of Fabric, right? Fabric is a great opportunity to connect your customers' data into from maybe different sources, and then using the power of AI to help them sift through the data and make good sense of it. That could be something that may not be possible for them to do on premises, and they can take advantage of that in Azure. I would say the other piece that is really exciting too, if you have a small business, let's say you have a customer, doctor's office, manufacturing company, maybe they have 10 or 15 people working for them. They may not have enterprise class technology in their infrastructure today. They maybe they have a database running on a desktop because that's just what they've done for all the years that they've been in business. Now moving to Azure, they get to actually consume enterprise class technology, enterprise class security, and it's not incredibly expensive for them to do so. And as they say, it's not incredibly expensive. If you've been around and looked at the Azure calculator and done some math, over the last few years, you may look at the cost of Azure based on those practices and find out, it is expensive. And I would say if you have found it to be expensive, there might be, you may have done it a little wrong. And so I'll talk about that real quick. Traditional infrastructure, a lot of people think CPU, RAM, and storage. And so what they'll do is they'll put those specifications in the Azure calculator. What we really want in Azure is to understand how much compute and CPU, RAM, and storage do we actually need to run that workload. So it could be an application, could be database, could be an Exchange server, whatever that may look like. What is the actual compute resources that you need to make it run well for the people that are using it? And when you get dialed into that aspect of doing an estimate in Azure, you'll find the pricing will be either competitive or actually in the long term a little bit cheaper. We're going to talk more about that through the presentation. Keeping your customers, I don't want to go through every box on the slide, but keeping your customers from being poached and my little guy running away with your customers in a bag. That again goes back to the beginning where I said, make sure your customers know that you have the ability to deliver Azure services. And maybe today you're thinking, well, we really don't. I don't have an engineer on staff that can do Azure. And, it's not really important to us today. And I may agree with that to some degree, but the challenge becomes if the customer doesn't know that you do Azure, when they think about it and they're ready to move into Azure, they're not calling you. They're going to go find a competitor to go and do Azure. And then if they go through ITAD and retire their infrastructure, their hardware, and dispose of it, then that partner that they brought in technically is taking your business away. And that's not nobody wants to be in that space. So as long as your customers know they can reach out, that's great. And then if you don't have the technical expertise to deploy Azure, I'm going to talk about our pro services team. And I would strongly encourage you to reach out, get to know our team. We can deploy just about any environment in Microsoft Azure, and we can do it on your behalf, very white labeled. And it's not incredibly expensive, but yes, we do charge a little bit for it. And you can take advantage of those services until you get to a point where you can make that investment, if you wish, in a technical resource. So let's look at hardware versus Azure in the sales cycle. When you look at on-premises hardware, it's a capital expense. Your customer's taking money out of the bank, out of their profits, and they're buying this hardware, and they don't want to do it very often because it's very expensive. And then they're paying you probably to do migration from their old servers to new servers for faster technology. And that life cycle continues on. It's been going for years and will continue to go for years forward. So you got management, migration, upgrade, licensing. There's also soft dollars that a lot of customers don't consider because, well, I own the building anyway. So I've got my server set up in a server closet or, part of my office. And it is costing them money. It costs them money for you to manage that infrastructure. It costs money for you to upgrade or migrate that infrastructure. It costs them power, heating, cooling, all those other pieces. And if they decide to move from on-prem into Azure, all that could possibly go away. Maybe they could buy a building smaller or move to a building that's smaller, which would be maybe a good investment for the business owner. Or if they're continuing to build their business and need to hire new people, they can reallocate that server space for someone who's being productive and driving more success within the organization. So those are things that I don't think a lot of customers think about, and it works out to be part of the total cost of ownership of having on-premises hardware. If you move into Azure, you're moving from a capital expense to an operating expense. And an operating expense is basically paying for your utilities or heating or gas in your car. Like you consume utilities when you turn the lights on, like I have in my office here. But when I flip the switch off, I don't pay for it anymore. Same rings true for Microsoft Azure. I could run a server 8 hours a day, 5 days a week if I really want to, or maybe 8 or 9 hours a week because I might want to have it up before my customer comes in and then not have it go off until they leave. So that's a good way to save money in Microsoft Azure. Or I could have it running 24/7, or I could scale up, which means I can add more compute resources, or I could scale down, which means I'm minimizing compute resources. So again, in businesses that have seasonal work or project work where the customer needs to hire new people, or if there's an environment, a business environment change where the economy maybe turns down and they've got to, unfortunately let some people go, they can actually scale down that infrastructure as well. They, again, take advantage of Microsoft innovation. And then test and dev, you can take advantage of doing test and dev in Microsoft Azure. And just if you need the server on for 2 hours and then you turn it off, maybe you're paying 50 cents an hour. So it costs you a whole buck to run an Azure server to do some test and dev. So those are some of the really great advantages of taking advantage of cloud in the environment. And I'm not saying that so when I'm presenting this, I'm not saying there isn't still reason for a customer to have a server on site. There very well may be a good reason for them to have it on site. Maybe it's a mission critical application and the business owner just wants to, maybe he's a bit of a server hugger and wants to know that it's right there and he can look at it every day when he comes in. And that's fine. I 100% get it. But on the other hand, if the customer does decide to move to Azure, they get enterprise grade security. You can protect them as well or better in Azure than you can on premises because Azure has a security team that is available 24/7, 365, and they're protecting the whole environment. But let me be very clear. Azure security team is protecting the whole Azure environment. You still need to bring best practices to the subscription and the tenant that you set up for your customer so that you're protected on the inside of that subscription, because Microsoft has no way to get into your subscription and add any security or change anything at all. That's just not what they do. That's all you. So and still the same best practices are there that you want to take advantage of. So when we talk about capital expenditures, right? Customer goes through wanting to buy a new server. They got to assess their needs and do some planning and figure out what server to buy, whether they're going to buy an HP or a Dell or some other server. They probably got to understand if it's got enough storage or put more storage in it. And maybe you're saying, like, we do that for our customer. That's fair. But they still, to some degree, I think, if I was a savvy business owner, I might do a little bit of shopping on my own just to make sure that what you bring back to me, as much as I trust you, I want to make sure that it's exactly what I need, maybe. So you may have some customers that are like that. So in total time, by the time you place your order, get the server in, maybe you guys have to do some, if Windows is on or Windows Server license is installed, you may have to do that. You may do some customization on it before you actually bring it to the customer and then get it set up. Statistically, it's proven to be anywhere from 2 to 3 months from end to end by the time the customer needs a new server till it's actually in and been migrated to and back up and running. Where you look at Azure, again, it's an operational expense, so I only pay for what I need when I need it. I can get a server stood up. I did a couple the other day, and I was at my desk and I fired up a couple servers, and then I went, in the bathroom, finished getting ready for my day. And by the time I came back out, which was probably less than 10 minutes, every server I had asked to provision was up and running. So, and it had the operating system in, and I didn't have to put a license in because the licensing is included in the servers. If you um, um, spin up a server, you'll find you pick which operating system that you want to use. Budget approvals and financial planning could be a lot less time, considering we can right size their on-premises server environment, understand what the workload is, and get an estimate to them in Azure basically the same day. Within hours or an hour, a lot of that could be done. And then making the move to Azure could be, depending on the migration, anywhere from, we put down 4 to 6 weeks, but I've actually seen some customers get stood up, within a couple of weeks, because it's just pretty easy to, make or actually use the Azure Migrate tool and just start the migration process of bringing the on-prem server, whether it be a Hyper-V machine, or a VMware machine or a physical machine. It doesn't take long to move that infrastructure into Azure. So when you start thinking about all these pieces, that's the total cost of ownership that the customer doesn't have to, but should consider when they're looking at an on-premise solution versus an Azure solution. And there also is, I want to let you know, there is a TCO tool that is available on Microsoft's website if you want to go through it. It's going to ask you for what what workloads are running today, and it will ask you about your power, your heating, your cooling, all the different aspects of TCO, and then it'll make some assumptions. And if you go through it on the outside, it'll come back and let you know the cost savings. Typically, it'll show you cost savings of running it on premises versus running it in the cloud. So I wanted to certainly bring that to you so you get a good idea of all the things that should be considered when talking with your customer. We've had we also bring this up because we've had many partners that have come to us with an opportunity and we help them put it together, but then they don't know kind of what the next part of the conversation needs to be when presenting it back to your customer. So Azure's is really solving business needs. Azure is a solution sale more than it is a consumption sale. So I could buy 10 of these, or I could buy 10 Microsoft licensing. Pretty easy. I could say I need 10. Give me a quote. Here's an order. It's done. Azure, I rarely ever have somebody come up to me and say, "Hey, I need 10 virtual machines for just because." And if you did come and say you needed 10 virtual machines, my first response is, well, what are you going to do with them? What are they going to run within the customer's environment? Because I want to make sure that you get the right machine. I want to make sure that all the services, backup, disaster recovery, egress data charges, like there's a lot of different moving parts to just to make sure those machines are set up and successful for your customer to run on them well. So that's where I come with traditional hardware. It's one and done. I make a decision, I go ahead and buy the hardware, and then I don't really have to do anything else for the next 5 or 6 years. If they move to the cloud, you're taking advantage of economies of scale, and the customer never ever has to worry about doing another hardware refresh again, which could be a good thing for the customer. But you may be listening to this presentation and you're thinking, well, I'm a managed service provider, or I'm, maybe not an MSP, but I'm in this business and I make money by doing either migration work, or customers can buy my time at an hourly rate. And if I don't do those migrations anymore, I'm blowing a hole in my profitability. And I will say to you, that is not true. When a customer moves to the cloud, yes, that would be probably their last migration, but they will need more work. So the opportunity to optimize their existing infrastructure would be very important once the customer gets into the cloud. And then over time, as the customer continues to build trust with you and with Azure, there'll be project work. They're going to grow. They're going to need, another server. They're going to want to perhaps have a different workload. Maybe they've decided to go from, an accounting software A to an accounting software B because this software would be better for what they're trying to do in the long term. So you've got to make those changes for the customer. All your project work is still going to be there. Again, it's just different. And if you think about it in the perspective of your business, when you're in a hardware business, if it's mostly hardware, then you get hills and valleys, right? You're going along, maybe you sold 5 or 6 or 8 deals one month, and profits are good and you're making really good money. And maybe for the next month or two, you've not been able to sell 5 or 6 or 8 deals. I don't know how many deals you actually need, but just to prove a point. So maybe you only sell 1 or 2 or none, and then so you're taking a dip. When you get into cloud services to include Azure, you're building an annuity business that just forever keeps on giving you money. The more you build it, the more profits you make year on year, because the customers are continuing to grow. You're continuing to bring new business on to your organization, and it's just really a good thing. I mean, that's what we're doing here at Sherweb, and the more we sell and help you sell to your customers, the more we keep growing, and it's a fantastic place to be. The other thing is, I'm not sure. Let me go on to the next page here. I had a little slip there. So how do I position Azure to my customers? Well, for me, it's asking open-ended questions, right? Who, what, why, where, when, and how. We all know, if you've been around the business for a number of years, you start asking questions about what's going on with your customer, especially if they trust you, and they'll tell you, they're challenged with maybe their infrastructure or things aren't working properly. The server has to reboot a number of times in a day, and it takes them away from productivity. There could be a number of different things. And when you start uncovering those things and you know how some of the services in Azure work, then you start positioning those services as solutions for your customer. If you're not sure what those solutions are, every Wednesday at 1:00 in the afternoon, I do product kind of training. So what is a virtual desktop? Talk to me about VMs and servers and storage, network and backup and DR. I go through all those conversations every single Wednesday, so I can introduce you to more Azure services, so you know how to position it. Here's a great story. It was at my previous employer. I was working on presenting Microsoft in general to customers through a partner, of course. And I had one of the partners bring a customer to me, and we just started to get talking. I mean, I spent all my day talking about Microsoft and specifically Azure. And through the conversation, I found out the customer was using terminal services, and they were really having a challenging time with it internally. So I offered them the AVD, so Azure Virtual Desktop. Great solution. It's the next generation of terminal services, so to say, except you're actually running a real version of the Windows OS on a virtual machine, which is wonderful. So the customer was interested in looking at Azure Virtual Desktop, and we offered a proof of concept. So if you're not familiar with a POC, what we'll do, and we can do it here at Sherweb as well, is let us know. So you want to reach out to your account manager and let them know you have an opportunity and you would like to talk with the Azure team. The Azure team will help you understand what the opportunity is, and make sure your customer understands what it is as well. And then you can ask them about a proof of concept. So proof of concepts work best toward the end of the sales cycle. It's like when the customer is, they're kind of interested, but you can tell they're a little bit leery or skeptical, and they're not 100% sure that maybe Azure will do what they need to accomplish, or what you are going to accomplish for them. So I would offer POC, and then we can decide what the customer needs to be successful. So in the opportunity that I was working through, the customer wanted like 5 or 6 virtual AVD desktops set up. So we were able, through the POC funding, to pay for the professional services. That's usually the most expensive part of the POC, and the customer was willing to pay for the consumption in Azure. We set them up on a production account, not a sandbox account. And the reason for that is we're investing dollars to get the customer up and running. So we want them to continue moving forward, and we don't want to have to do a sandbox and then shut it all down and then redo the work in a production account. So we just get them set up in a production account. My customer was able to go through, utilize AVD, absolutely loved the experience. And through that conversation, as he was working out the AVD, making sure it was running for them, I was able to find out. I said, "Where's your infrastructure? Like, where do you guys have it? Is it on-prem or, around?" And he said it was in a co-location. So I said, what if we offered to do an optimization exercise on the infrastructure in your co-location? And he actually, it sounds like the best customer ever. It probably is. But he said, yeah, that would be great, because we do actually have some of our infrastructure, which is getting a little bit old. And there's some applications that I know that are running out there that we really don't use anymore. So it gave him an opportunity to kind of clean house, as well as figure out how to optimize the workloads that he did need to keep. And so through that process, we were able to save the customer, I'm going to say roughly $500 a month. And that was pretty exciting for him. He's like, was that over 12 months? It's like $6,000. So he was interested in that. And then finally, I asked about their Office 365 business, just, as we were chatting, and we lost the business to a competitor. And I said, now that you're doing AVD with us and you're going to grow and you consider Azure, would you consider giving us another shot? And I knew the competitor that we were working with didn't have very good support, really good at selling it, but not really good at supporting it. So I said, you can buy it through us and we offer support. And, you might pay a little bit more, but in the end result, so he gave me an opportunity to quote it. I actually was able to just undercut my competition a little bit, and he got our support. And to this day, he's doing well. And the whole deal, all in all, at the end of the day, wound up being about $15,000 a month, just by asking and poking around, some of the challenges within the customer organization. So I wanted to share that with you. It is absolutely possible. What I'm telling you today is not 100% bulletproof, but hopefully it gives you some insights on how to be able to talk to your customer and win yourself a deal. So if we go through the Sherweb Azure sales process, I'm not sure if you've been through it before, if you're selling Azure or not, but basically we will help you all the way through this process at every step of the way. You identify your customer's need, you reach out to your account manager. All things at Sherweb work through your account manager. That's the best way to get them going. If by chance you've been doing a number of deals and you feel really comfortable just reaching out directly to our Azure team, we're not going to tell you that was a bad move. It's never a bad move. Please make sure you copy your account manager on that email as well, just so they know what's going on within your organization and they can best serve you when they understand what's happening a little bit. So you get the scope and ID with the partner. Sometimes we'll do an assessment. So if you get a subscription for your customer and you log in, you go to the migration section, and then you get access to the Azure assessment tool. The Azure assessment tool is really cool. You would deploy basically a device, a virtual machine, on your customers in your customer's environment rather. And if it's a VMware customer, they give you a VMDK. If it's Hyper-V, I believe it's an OVF file, and that just runs on the customer's environment. It's very light. It doesn't impact their production very much at all. But what it will do is it'll start to sense what's happening out in the customer's environment and give you a good idea at the end. If you can run it for a week or 10 days, then at the end of that, you can get a nice report coming out, which give you a pretty good idea of what their workloads would look like in Azure. And we'll do that with you. We can walk through the process and we'll guide you and hold your hand from end to end, no problem at all. So we scoped and ID'd it, and then we go to a partner presents to the customer. Azure calculator team. Reading the wrong side of the slide. We can help do the Azure calculator with you, for you. It's no problem. Just let us know you need some help. What we would really like to see over time is maybe we did 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 estimates for you. Then maybe you start putting together the estimate and then using us as safety blanket to some degree. Like, am I missing anything? Right? Did I get the backup, storage, the DR, egress data? Is it all set up right? And we can look at that anytime and give you another view, or maybe ask some extra questions to help, make sure the customer gets everything that they need to run successfully. So we've architected it and estimated it. We may offer professional services if you don't have that person on staff that can deliver. We've got a team of people that we can deliver. We've got a slide later on I'll share with you. And then when you go back to your customer, you're going to talk about TCO, ROI, CapEx, OpEx, and we're going to give you some education. It's because we want to help load you with all the right tools and words to help have that conversation with your customer so that your customer can make an informed decision. And then you present to your customer, you get the approval. If you decide to use our professional services team, you'll get a statement of work from us on every step that will happen to get your customer successfully set up in Azure. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit more. There's a digital signature on the statement of work, and then we get our project manager from the pro services team to start the project and follow it through to completion. So if you have any questions on that, please let us know. This slide is a very busy slide, but it's a great slide because it actually gives you a lot of the open-ended questions. These ones, the do yous, they're not really open. They should be open-ended. I'll probably have to rewrite a few. But it'll give you some good insight into just starting that sleuthing a little bit, like identifying what's going on within the customer's organization and how you can position Azure as a solution for their needs. You'll get this deck at the end of the presentation along with the video. And it'll also, in time, this presentation will be loaded up on YouTube, so you'll be able to get it again if you misplace it or just want to see it. So some of the customer objections that we have along the way, Azure's just quite frankly too expensive. I've heard it over my career probably hundreds of times. Sometimes it's just not the right time for your customer to make the decision to go to Microsoft Azure, and that's okay. Like I said in the beginning, it's best that they know that they can come to you when the time is right than trying to looking for somebody else because you haven't told them and it's not on your website. So I would encourage you to make sure, even if you have a solution, and I'm talking about solution sales, I would make sure that on your website you put Microsoft Azure. Just, that's the shiny object out there. That's what your customers are hearing. And when most people, I know I do, if I'm going to go out and buy something, the first thing I do is look them up on the internet. It's just super easy. So even if you don't talk about it, and I did talk with a partner earlier this week, he's like, I don't want to do that because I want to provide the right solution to my customer. I don't want to force feed them Azure. And I said, great, I love that. But just make sure your website shows that Azure's there. And if the customer calls in and says, hey, I want to go to Azure, then the first thing I would ask the customer is, tell me about that. Why do you want to go to Microsoft Azure? Maybe it's because his best buddy up the street has a great experience in Azure. Maybe Azure's not right for that customer. So essentially, what I'm saying is at some point in time, the customer will make the journey, hopefully to Azure versus the competitors, but make sure that it's with you. I'm a server hugger, and I want to make sure that I know where my servers are. Well, if you go into Azure, your servers will go in a region and in an availability zone. And you can actually look and figure out where in the country these servers are. They don't tell you the exact address, but they'll say like they're in Virginia or they're in, California. Well, I don't think they're any in California because that'd be a little bit risky, but they would be in a fault tolerant location where there's minimum impact of environmental damages, and so you kind of know where they are. But Mr. Customer, your servers are in a closet, and by the way, your cleaning staff, your employees, like everybody has access to these servers, and that's kind of a security risk. So moving them into Microsoft Azure provides you better security because now you're using enterprise grade security, not just having them in a closet with a key and maybe a USB drive backing them up. Let's really like make it right. And we also did over time, I heard that a contractor actually caused a security breach. I believe it was an air conditioner contractor, but when they logged in, they had to do something with the AC. And now that it's all technical, you have to kind of log in and see the compute, whatever. Something happened and it wound up getting back into the customer's network and they got breached. So, I'm not going to tell you that Microsoft Azure will never be breached. We've seen it in the news before. I'm sure there'll be some tactics being used in the future where we're gonna find some issues. Personally, myself, I think the security that I can get out of Microsoft Azure and an enterprise organization, and some of the best practices that Microsoft puts out, I would feel safer having it out there. And it's mine. It is mine. You can look online. I can send you the link. Microsoft does not have access to your keys or your passwords. They're all encrypted. You have access to everything you need. And if you lose the key or the password, the encrypted file, well, I ain't got another problem because you're not going to get in to be able to get it out. So make sure you take care of anything you encrypt or any keys that you have, make sure you've got them backed up and protected so you don't lose it. So your customer says, what happens if my internet goes down? Well, if your internet goes down, we can get you a redundant connection, one for production, one for backup. Maybe that's a good way to go after it. I need a steady bill. Heard this a ton of times. I just want, I'm on-prem and I get a steady bill. Why can't I get a steady bill? You can. The way I would suggest you do it, you own the billing to your customer. There are variables in Azure for sure, but the best way to manage the variable is pick a 31-day billing cycle for every single month. The reason being is there isn't a 32-day billing cycle, so they're being billed for the max every day of the month. If it's a 30-day month, you actually make out a little bit better because you're charging them for a day that they didn't actually use their services. If it's February leap year, well, you get a couple of days, but that's the best way to give them a consistent bill. And then the second best way is I come up with a basic idea. On egress data, they get charged. On premises, they just pay their bill. They don't know how much data is coming and going. So that could be a scary thought when you move to Azure and you're going to get charged for egress data. For an organization that has 25 users or less, I usually say quote them at about 250 to 300 gigs a month of egress data. It's roughly $24. I think it's actually less. but it's like $24 for 100 gigs, about 800. It's about $8 per 100, roughly. And then if I know for a fact, if your customer goes over or under, it'll be roughly $5. So whatever you charge them for it, just give it a flat. It's $24. It's $24. If they go under, still $24. If they go over, still $24. Yeah, $24. It'll all work out in the wash. So if they, over the years, you might be down a little bit and you might be up a little bit, but honestly, it'll work out in the wash in the long term. So that's the best way that I know of to give a customer a steady state bill. Okay, so we've had a little bit of time talking. I got about 6 minutes left. Please, please, please don't forget at the end of the presentation, you are going to get a survey. We really appreciate your feedback. We want to know, did you like it? Did you not like it? Could we have done better? How is that? Like, what could we have done better? It's very important to us to stay on top of what you guys want to hear from us. We want to be your trusted advisor. So thank you for doing the survey. So that's the first call to action. The second call to action, adopt a cloud first mindset. Yes, you may still sell hardware, but the more you adopt a cloud first mindset, you're helping your customers think of the future. And if you look at the environment, cloud, AI, Copilot, they're all, automated services, robots, like we're all getting into it. You can see it down the road. Make sure that your customer knows you're adopting technology. I mean, even if you don't sell it to them, at least they know you're still staying ahead of the curve. You're not falling behind what's happening. Build a plan, right? And a plan, we start talking about an Azure practice. There's nothing fancy really about an Azure practice. But what it means is I'm going to make a plan to succeed and grow my business. So you may say, I'm going to win 2 customers this month in Azure. That's all. Maybe, I don't know how many customers you have. Maybe you have 25 or 30 or 50. Just win two customers, win 2 opportunities. So it could be with your existing customers or net new, right? You just want to start growing that Azure business. The other reason why you want to start growing that Azure business is because when you get to a certain clip, and I don't know exactly where it is, you may already be at it now. We have a team of people on staff that 99% of their day, they are looking at your back office through Partner Center at partners profitability. So your profitability, your rebates, the incentives, money. Microsoft has money that they are giving to partners that achieve goals that are set out in Partner Center. Make sure, you may not understand what they are. We got experts on staff that know what they are. If you give them, 30 minutes of your time, 15 minutes of your time, and permission to access, drive your screen, they'll go in, push the buttons, and they'll say, hey, you know what? You're 1 cert away from hitting the next level of payout. Well, heck, I'm going to go get that cert because I want the money, right? That's all available to you. Just ask our team, ask your account manager to talk to somebody that can look at your Partner Center and make sure you're getting the most return on the rebates and the incentives. So again, if you want to win 2 or 3 deals, typically it's a third of what you're going to chase. So you want to chase like 10, 12 customers, and hopefully out of those 10 or 12 customers, you win 2 or 3 deals. That's the math that we kind of see here in distribution. Ask open-ended questions, learn about your customer's business, and you may already know all about your customer's business, right? You're taking care of them every single day. See if there's opportunity for Azure to be part of the solution. And access the workloads. Azure is not about the hardware. It's about the workload. It's about making sure I got enough CPU, RAM, and storage to run the application, whatever that is, for my customer. And we're here to help you win all the way along. You want us to get on the call with your customer and help them with an opportunity that you found? We're happy to help. You want us to do the estimate? Happy to help. Let us know how we can help you. Oh, and the other piece is, if your customer any of your customers that do business with Sherweb through you get free tech support. You can so you can call us at any time. We have inroads to Microsoft all the way from tier 1 to tier 4 for tech support. So if you need help, it's there. And that could be a selling feature. I've talked with some partners that have bigger customers, and they're like, well, it's only, $1,200 a month. I think it's about $15,000 a year. Well, save that money. You're going to get the same experience coming through us, and you're not going to get a warm live body over there at Microsoft. But you know what? I'm your partner. If you got a problem, you can reach out to me, and then you guys can reach out to Sherweb. If you can't get access through support, call your account manager and say, hey, I've put a support ticket in. It's been 24 hours, haven't heard anything back, and my customer's freaking out and I need help. We're going to help you. And we have people at Microsoft who can reach out to. So think of Sherweb as your big brother in this Azure journey or Microsoft journey, because 365 is the same. And, just let us know what you need and we're here to help. That's one of the values that Sherweb is very proud of. We're an ethical company and we want to help you win. All right, I think I'm almost at the end. I've got a couple more slides. Professional services. We've got a team of certified Azure professionals. We've got engineers, project managers, pre-sales specialists, Azure architects available on staff to you. And all you have to do is pay a little bill to take advantage of that team of people. If it were me and I had to hire somebody at $150,000 or whatever, an engineer's salary, plus pay benefits and 401k and all the other things that come with it, I would use pro services at Sherweb. If you guys are going to be white labeled and you're going to deliver a great experience to my customer, all day long, I would take care of it until I got to the point that it makes sense for me maybe to get my own engineer. Or maybe not. I just keep using you guys, right? And we're also looking, please give us the opportunity to say no before you walk away from a piece of business from your customer. We are building out an ecosystem of partners that, it's very hard for any one partner to do all the things that Microsoft Azure has to offer, or Microsoft in general. So we're building out a network, and we would love, before you say no to the customer because you don't have the skill set to deliver, Dynamics, right? We're a Dynamics partner. We can help you deliver Dynamics. So please, even if it's something weird that you don't think's on our radar, just give us a call. Give us an opportunity to say no before you say no. We want you to win. And here. So Azure webinars, we've got 2 webinars that were done this week. Why should you build an Azure practice? I did it on, I don't remember what day it was, yesterday, I think. And then Entra Suite. So Entra Suite, Microsoft Entra Suite, ID Suite is the backbone of getting everything set up in Office 365 or Azure, setting up security. Was it roles-based access control or identity access management? All of that's done in Entra Suite. We have one of the top guys. He's a bit technical. That presentation was a little bit more technical than our traditional one, but full of really, really, really great information. So if you want to watch it, go ahead and watch those 2 videos. Again, you're going to get this presentation probably early next week. We'll get it out to you, as well as the video that we're creating right now. And I'm done. So Q&A. I went a couple minutes over.
If you guys have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A window, and I will share them with Jason, and he'll be able to help answer any questions that you guys might have.
Don't be shy. Any question that's on your mind is a good question. I'm sure somebody else is probably thinking about it. I know it takes a little bit of courage to speak up and ask. Please do. I would love to hear it. Akila, I think we have a bunch of Azure masters on the phone.
Yeah.
On the call, rather. Yeah.
it's a quiet group right now, but if you guys do have any questions or have any questions after the webinar, please feel free to reach out to your account manager or sales representative, and they can get you in touch with the right people, whether it be Jason or someone else from their Azure team, to help answer any of the questions that you have. I think that concludes
And the survey. Sorry.
Yeah.
Don't forget the survey.
Yeah. Just a reminder, the survey will pop up once the webinar ends. Sorry. So if you could just take a few moments to complete that, we would greatly appreciate your feedback. And with that, I will let you all go. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday and enjoy your weekend. And we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.